May 3, 1944. The North Atlantic Ocean. 340 miles east of Newfoundland, beneath a sky heavy with storms, a young man sat in near total darkness. The compartment smelled of oil, sweat, and salt water. The only light came from a pale green screen, glowing like a ghost in the black. Petty Officer Donald Merrick pressed the headphones tighter against his ears. He wasn't supposed to hear what he was hearing. According to everything the Navy taught, the enemy below had vanished, gone silent, invisible. But Merrick knew better. What would you do if you were the only person who could hear the danger, and no one believed you? For 43 minutes, the submarine had been running silent. Most operators would have given up by now, moved on, assumed the contact was lost. But Merrick, a farm boy from Nebraska who'd never seen the ocean until 2 years ago, had learned to listen differently. He heard the wind before storms arrived on the prairie. He heard machinery breaking before it failed. And now, in the cold waters of the Atlantic, he heard something no one else could. A faint, metallic rhythm. A rusty bolt, rattling loose somewhere deep in the enemy's hull. It was the sound of something dying, and Merrick understood in that moment that he could turn that sound into a weapon. The weapon that shouldn't exist. The USS Donaldson was a small ship, just over 300 feet long, a single gun mounted on the bow. She wasn't built to be a hero. She was built to escort convoys, merchant ships, tankers, troop transports, across an ocean filled with threats. But on this day, she carried something more dangerous than any cannon. An idea. Merrick's captain, Lieutenant Commander William Hartford, stood in the plotting room, listening to the recording Merrick had brought him. To Hartford's trained ear, it sounded like nothing. Background noise. Ocean static. But Lieutenant Commander Harold Fessenden, a specialist in underwater acoustics, heard what Merrick heard. "That sound," Fessenden said quietly, "is a confession." The submarine wasn't just hiding. It was broadcasting its location, through a failing bearing, a mechanical flaw born from weeks of stress, saltwater corrosion, and desperation. Hartford made a decision that would have gotten him court-martialed in peacetime. He trusted an enlisted man's intuition over the Navy's entire tactical manual. The hunt. For the next 4 hours, Merrick mapped the sound. He traced its frequency, its rhythm, the way it shifted as the enemy moved through the water. He didn't use equations. He didn't consult charts. He listened, the way a musician listens to a symphony, separating one instrument from the chorus. Depth, 220 feet, Merrick reported. Speed, 5.8 knots. Bearing, northeast. Hartford positioned the Donaldson using only this information. No sonar pings, no conventional detection, just the sound of something breaking. Somewhere far below at 3:47 a.m., the order was given. The Hedgehog fired. 24 projectiles arced into the darkness ahead of the ship, spreading in a perfect circle. Each one carried 35 pounds of explosive. They were designed to detonate only on contact, not at a preset depth. In the water below, the crew of WW2 had no warning. The first 3 charges erupted close enough to shake the hull. The fourth struck directly. In 17 seconds, it was over. 52 men. A steel vessel that had crossed an ocean. A strategy the Germans believed was unbeatable. All of it gone, because of a rusty bolt and a farm boy who knew what failure sounded like. The shift news of the attack spread quietly through the fleet. No headlines, no ceremonies. Just whispers between ships, passed through encrypted channels and hushed conversations during refueling stops. "Did you hear? The Donaldson got one, below the thermocline. They didn't even use conventional sonar." Within weeks, destroyer escorts across the Atlantic were requesting sonar operators trained in the Merrick method. The Navy, recognizing what they had, began recruiting men with agricultural backgrounds, musicians, anyone with exceptional hearing and an instinct for sound. The sonar school in Boston was reorganized. Officers who would command ships in the Pacific attended classified briefings on something that 6 weeks earlier didn't officially exist: acoustic targeting. On May 19th, the USS England used the technique to locate and neutralize U-346 in under 40 minutes. 2 weeks later, 4 more enemy submarines were lost. The Germans couldn't understand it. Their best vessels, operating with their most advanced stealth protocols, were being found with machine-like precision. Intelligence analysts in Berlin theorized the Americans had deployed thousands of new detection devices, some kind of underwater radar. The truth was simpler and more terrifying. One man, one sound, one willingness to believe in what shouldn't have been possible. The war that changed. By mid-June, the psychological impact was undeniable. Submarine commanders who once felt invisible now felt hunted. The tactic they had relied on, hiding beneath layers of cold water, running silent, waiting, had been shattered. Not by technology, by observation. German submarine captain Friedrich Schmidt wrote in his final log entry, recovered after his vessel was lost, "We cannot hide from an enemy who hears us the way we hear silence." In the month of May 1944 alone, 8 submarines were neutralized using Merrick-based techniques. The previous average had been 3 per month across the entire fleet. The advantage had shifted, and it would never shift back. After the war, Merrick never became an admiral. He never commanded a ship. When the war ended, he returned to Nebraska, worked briefly as a sound engineer, then went back to farming. He married, raised 3 children, lived quietly. Most people in his hometown had no idea what he'd done. When asked, years later, why his method had worked, Merrick gave an answer that revealed everything. The sound was always there. The enemy was always telling us where they were. They just didn't know it. I listened, and the captain believed me. That's all it took. The lesson. The story of Donald Merrick isn't just about submarines or sonar or tactics. It's about something deeper. It's about the courage to hear what others dismiss. The willingness to trust intuition grounded in experience, and the leadership required to believe in someone the system was designed to overlook. 47 enemy submarines were stopped using acoustic targeting by war's end. 34 of those were directly traceable to Merrick's methods. But more than that, an entire way of thinking changed. Innovation didn't come from laboratories or conference rooms. It came from a young man in a dark compartment listening to the ocean the way he once listened to the wind on the Nebraska plains. And it came from a captain who had the wisdom to trust him. The rusty bolt that rattled loose on WW2 wasn't just a mechanical failure. It was a reminder that in war, as in life, victory often belongs not to those with the best weapons, but to those who pay the closest attention.